So, finally got the last power supply piece that I forgot to order. Ooh, that'll be nice. Or wait, that's not quite right. Maybe this one. Yeah. So there's a 4-pin to 4-pin, which is what I was looking for the other day. So I cannot have this big guy dangling out or have to cut it or modify it in any way. Let's see. And the supply itself, which looks like it's a combination of the smaller supply from their website, the 80-watt one, or maybe this is just the same connector for both. It just looks like standard power cable, which I actually need to go dig out of the garage, and that clicks on to this guy's the 160 watt internal. So this will screw onto the little holes. I think there's holes. Well, yeah, there's some. Looks like there's about 10 different sets of mounting holes on this. But this will screw on. Looks like right there to those, and it came with this bag of tiny little screws that I'm not even going to open yet because I'm going to lose them. And yeah, and then I'll screw this back plate on and we'll be good to go. Then I can actually put this in its final location and not have to worry about my cat digging at these dangling power cords, assuming I can find a place to put them all. So, one other thing I want to look at while we're in here is that, I guess I can sit down here. Once again, I keep standing up for some reason. Get my shadow out of the way. I was going to take the RAM out and take a look at it to see if there's anything I can do about those heat spreaders so that they're not getting pressed on by this bracket here. So, let's start there. We'll just take a look at that quickly because I think that'll be pretty easy to get to. Okay. Oh, I need to dig the book out too. Okay, so these look like not something you can very easily take apart. I think they're probably glued. Yeah. Well, I will just do what I said the last time and not torque down the screws too hard so that there's not a ton of pressure on the board under there, because that would be unfortunate. Okay, let me get the book and make sure I can use that 4-pin for what I want to use it for. It's not for something special. Assuming I can find the book. Where did I put that thing? Ah, there it is. Okay. So in the back, they have different power supply install pages. This is the one that I want. No, this is not the one that I want. This is very similar to the one that I want, though. So, let's see. It's kind of split across a couple of different pages. It almost looks like these were printed in the wrong order. So this is saying 80 watt AC/DC plus 160 watt DC ATX converter. I got the 160 DC ATX converter, but this is a 160 AC/DC. This one's showing the two basic. I'm guessing that they go on in almost exactly the same way though, so there shouldn't be that big of an issue. And there's nothing other than these two pages to tell me how. So it looks like I can use that power cable for whatever I want, which is good because I want. So let's get this stuff a little bit out of the way. I can take this off altogether because that's not going to be what I use for power in the long run. Okay. And unfortunately, I have no other use for that at this time. I'm sure I have some friends that can figure out something to do. And this guy, so hopefully, is this long enough? This looks like it's exactly the right length, so that's super nice. That will get rid of a ton of slack on this cable here, and I actually need to probably take this whole thing out, or I'm not going to be able to. Oop, bumping the camera with my head. Can tell I've done this quite a bit, huh? There we go. Let's get this guy out of here. Out from under my heat pipes. Okay. Let's make sure all this stuff stays where it belongs. And then this one is going to go from there to the CPU. And yeah, it doesn't, since there's so little cable there, I'm just going to go over the heat pipe. I don't want to like go under, back up, and then have it be too short to actually click this thing down. So we'll just leave it like that. Let's see, this is getting twisted up already, which is probably fine, because I think that's where that has to go long term. This one is the power in. So this is what's going to click to this one. Oh. No, that's not. Dang it. That's what I need that 4-pin cable for, is to go from here to here. Well, that's disappointing. I wonder if, since it's got to be a longer route, well, not a lot longer, because this one pretty much makes it. Oh no, it's right next to the thing. Boy, that's just kind of annoying. And this is just a little 2-pin. I'm guessing this is for the other version of whatever that would be for. So that's not going to work. Yeah, I was really hoping to not have to modify one of these, but I think I'm going to have to. Or at least just shove it in somewhere where there's room. Yeah, I'm really going to have a hard time fitting all this extra stuff up here that I had to use for these MOLEXs, but I think I'll make it work. I'm going to have to make it work. So let's get it clicked in, I guess. And we will just see what we can do here. Okay. Feels pretty solid. Tips a lot front to back. Not really sure. It doesn't really feel like it's loose on the actual power connector though, so I think we're okay. Okay. And this guy, let's see, get that out for later. So if I can remember how I oriented this, would be this way. And these were under here. So this is the one that I need to not screw on too tight, because it pushes down on those heat spreader. You can see how much of a wobble there is where it's high centering on the RAM spreaders. So those screws are just going to have to be very light. just so that it doesn't wobble. Basically, I just want to eliminate vibration in this thing because it's completely silent right now. And so if I leave this loose at all, you know, that's just going to invite a little bit of vibration. I mean, there's no real moving parts, but just anything I can do to eliminate any possibility of noise. Yeah, could go a little tighter on the right side here. And then I'm also going to have to make sure that this top plate, because that's going to push down as well, that I just don't completely tighten that. Okay, so let's get back to tucking the SATA power cable underneath here. And I'm going to actually do it to the left here because I may need the room on the right for this power that I'm about to route. Because I'm going to use that longer black one. And there's a lot of extra slack in that thing. Let's see. That should be alright. It's not really touching anything. It's kind of floating in there. And then these ones. Get a little loop going. Okay. Oh, those are not laying like they were before, but I think it'll be alright. Alright, so let's get this thing attached. The power coming in. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, man. So I don't need the long one at all, because this thing is what that reaches around to the back. This little one that has to attach to this little one are going to be like literally right next to each other. So that's really unfortunate that there's not just some kind of like male-to-male junction deal just for that. Like that's a lot of cable for literally a zero length. That might be something I modify later. We'll see if I can't make this work nicely. And I'm actually, the logos are this way, but I'm actually going to mount this upside down in there. I highly doubt that it cares, just to get this on this side. Well, I guess it'll be face up. So, anyway. This thing, actually, I should see, does it matter which side this is on? It's definitely offset. It looks like it's offset to the right a little bit in the picture. So, from looking inside the case out, although once it's actually mounted in this other picture, it's the other way around. And it's absolutely backwards because this power cord would need to go to the port on this side of the rear panel. Which, if you look in this picture, is where the cord that it hooks to is going. So I'm going to go with mounted on the right, red cord on the right. And it also, I think, will have a little bit more room, and it's further away from the ATX supply here. So heat-wise, that'll be better. So, if that's the case, then those are the holes that work. And actually, it looks like it doesn't really matter because it's almost dead center. So, I guess I will just put it in the center and not worry about it. Get my tiny, tiny little screws out. Let's see if this screwdriver is... Yep, that'll work. could actually probably start these screws and slide it under them. The little power brick is just notches. It's not actually holes. So there's a little bit of play in that. My guess is for ease of mounting, because it's not like it's going to need to move, but see, this will just slide under there. So, in case you're curious. Alright, so 2 more. I don't think I have one of those power cables in here, so I will have to run out to the garage real quick. Keep not being ready for all of these steps, but I guess I could just cut the video before. Don't necessarily need to see me turning it on. You've already seen that in previous videos. We'll just assume that it turns on successfully. Alright, so this is going to mount to the front of the case with some screws. Looks like the big thumb screws. 4 pieces B, M4x6. Oh, and 1 piece C. So there must be one on the bottom as well. Or possibly the top plate. So there's 4. Oh yeah, there's one screw hole on the bottom. Maybe that just locks it in place, because it doesn't look like there's any threaded. Interesting. How does that work? One more time. Install the back plate. No, that's the back plate. Install the back plate. Install the rack. Okay, so they do the rack last, which I don't think is that big of a deal. Okay, so it says install on the faceplate, install the power supply on the faceplate, 160 watt DC ATX with 24 port closest to the bottom plate is the correct 24 pin port closest to the bottom plate. So it's perfectly symmetrical, so I don't know what they mean by that. Did their old version of this thing used to be asymmetrical? I can't tell from any of the pictures, so yeah, it kind of looks like it used to come out the bottom further, so once again, I really feel like this is a solid state system 100%, so it probably does not matter what orientation it's in. Plug the ATX cable set to the 160 watt before attaching the faceplate to the body. So they want me to plug in all the cables, and then it just says via 4 pieces B. That's it. I don't know where I saw install the thin ITX back plate using 4 pieces and faceplate with 4 pieces. Yeah, so it's just the big thumb screws. I must have read something wrong. Which there are 4 of in here. And there is a lot of extra leftover hardware for this. Quite a bit of it has to do with just AMD versus Intel, so if you end up with a bunch of stuff after you're done, do not worry. You've probably done everything just fine. Okay, so this disappointing cable issue here. So this is going to go in like this. And it's super long. So I'm just going to have to like triple wrap it on itself. I might actually get a zip tie or something later on for this if I can't find a good way to manage it. And one of these two does matter which, because only one of them has the right cut little notches will plug into here, like that. Okay, and we'll just let this guy fly around. At some point I will probably just snip this off, but we'll just wait and see. And then this piece, oh, there's 2 screws for that too, which I need to figure out what they're supposed to be. Those are install the IEC connector using 2 pieces H4. So H4 is these long, skinny, flathead screws that there's 16 of, and I think that that is pretty much the only time I've used those. There's a couple of others, but and of course now you get to be all OCD about which direction you want to install this thing. Probably is not relevant. There's a little ground. I'm assuming this is for the ground, this extra wire with the little circle. So I may have missed what I'm supposed to do with that. Let's just double check because it seems important. I'm guessing you screw it to the chassis in some way, probably underneath one of the screws that you attach it with. That may not be pointed out in the instructions though. So there's a picture of how that goes. See this little screw right there. And that is those little nuts that at the very beginning of this thing, in the first video, I said I don't know what these are for. That's what that's for, is for that little thing to be hooked to the case. So the case itself is grounded, so you don't get shocked by anything if you cross some wires somewhere. So, in that case, let's dig out 2 of those. I might only need 1 for the side that has the little wire, but just in case, it actually helps hold the screw in, we'll use both. And let's see. Probably want that to be away from the motherboard, just in case. I'd rather not things be grounding through the motherboard. So we'll put that on top. And I guess it's in the middle, so it doesn't matter, you can just pick. And this is a tight fit, because I've already got some cables routed through here, so let's push those back first. Or forward, I should say. Get this guy in. Oh, guess I don't really need that out here. This is going in at a weird angle for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. It looks like, yeah, so there's screws for this. I didn't actually do this in the other video, but these plates, the little aluminum plates that you use to hold the heat pipes on, right here, you can kind of see there's a little line. There's a screw going in the side of the case holding that in that is sticking out far enough to push this to the side when I try to put it in. So it's going in at this wonky angle. It's not quite that pronounced, but you get what I'm saying. So I might, let's see, let me pull that out a ways, get it in place, and see if once it's in, if I can tighten those down without affecting it. If not, I'll just move this plate over. I can move it 2 slots over and still have it be pressing the heat pipes against it, so we'll see. So I'll get that. Okay, that's much better. And we'll just hold that down temporarily with one of these very long screws for, yeah, it doesn't look like I'm actually going to need the nut on the bottom one, which is good because there's no way to get to it once it's inside the case here. Guess I could take the whole back panel off. Rather not. Okay, so that's in there. And now if so this top screw is fine. It goes over the top. It looks like the bottom screw is going to push against it, though. But it's pretty much as tight as I can get it anyway, and it's not really pushing it much, so I feel like that's fine. And I'd rather this plate be back here. The heat pipes have all this, pressure from where they're attached down, pushing them into the case that way, but there's nothing on the ends keeping them flat up against making contact, so I'd rather have that plate as far back as possible, so that's where we're going to leave it. And now I need to get that nut on there, if that's even possible from this angle. I actually do think I'm going to have to take off the back plate for this. So, and we'll put the other nut back in the pile. Oh, come on. Of course there's going to be one that I can't get off. Oh, there we go. These are hex head, just like those little cup screws that we had before, but the hex is a different size than this screwdriver, so they just freely spin, which is unfortunate. And somehow I put 3 of those down and already lost one, even though, oh, the wonders of ADD. Alright, well, I will find that in the video later when I'm putting this back on, in the review of the video. So for now, that comes off, and looks like there's just enough room to get this kind of clicked on there and get that nut going. Let's go between them this way, though. And hopefully that actually fits on this screw. I have to take a few tries. Oh, of course. Dumped it somewhere I couldn't get to it. Yeah, this is tight quarters for sure. This might be one of those hold the nut and turn the screw instead of holding the screw and turning the nut. In fact, it's absolutely going to be. At least get it started. There we go. So it's going through the nut now. So I can pull them out together, push just the screw in, pull them out together, push just the screw in, and see that's not quite tightened all the way down. So there's still going to be some manually twisting. Man, this is tight quarters. Come on. Almost there. Let's pull it out one more time this way. I want to get it so that the nut is pinching that between the case there without that's still a little bit too loose. Let's see if I can push it with flat heads here. Yeah, that'll work. It's just going to take some finagling. There we go. And that is... yeah, it's about as tight as that's going to get. It's a little close to this lip here, but I think it'll still work. Just have to hold it flat against the casing there when I put it back on. With, like I said, that fourth thumb screw that maybe just rolled off the desk and I didn't see it. Or did I put it in here? Oh no, I put it in there. Once again. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's the one. The wonders of ADD. So, this one, that one. Okay, so let's get this reattached. It's actually good that I did that in that order because now that screw is not going to damage that other wire, that side screw. It's not going to be pushing into that wire because it absolutely could have been. This is much easier to put on if you do it perpendicular, not at a wonky angle, which that screw that I was just talking about is preventing me from doing. So once again, I'm going to loosen that. Oh, come on. Yeah, this cord is going to be issue on this side, so alright, let's take that out and flip that the other way. Make sure you don't drop the nut. We'll go around this side. So what I was worried about is that that's going to get in the way of, like, you know, the actual audio ports, but audio ports are skinnier than the actual holes they go through here, so there's a little bit of a gap that it'll fit by just fine. Okay, let's hold this down and tighten the screw again. There we go, that's going to be better than the first time. Okay, and yeah, that's way better than the first time. I'm going to do a couple of torques on it if I can, but that should be all I need to do. Okay, yep, that's not moving. Alright, perfect. So, kind of fold that up against the side there, and hopefully, yep, much easier. That slid right on. So, let's get this thing attached. And once again, don't ever tighten all of these all the way down until you've got all four of them in place, or you'll never get the fourth one in place. Sometimes never even the third one. Okay, there's two. So I was running this last night just to give it some burn in and play a little bit since I had the temporary power working, and I spun up a Minecraft Feed the Beast Infinity on it and ran that for, oh, I don't know how long I was playing, quite a while. I had one buddy in there with me, and after, you know, a few hours, 2 or 3 hours, it was still idling. When I shut everything down and looked at it, it was sitting at 34C, I think, on the hottest of the CPU cores. And, I mean, you know, touching the fins on the sides and the top, it was just barely any warmer than it was before I started running it. So I'm pretty impressed so far with the ability to keep up, because the CPU, while that was running, was stuck at about 40% pretty much the whole time. So, you know, with that much CPU usage for that many hours, and it was still sitting at 34C, that's pretty good. Alright, so there we go. There's the entire back, I think, complete as it's ever going to be. I do need to remember to tighten that other screw on that little side plate, just to make sure that's getting pulled tight against the edge, since it does make the heat pipes contact the fins. And now I push these back up to where they were, or somewhere near to where they were, if possible. It's a little touchy, but I think I can get it through. And that one was a push, not a pull. Okay, so this thing hooks to this thing. So this is going to go this way. And I just have to figure out how to fit this brick along with all of these cables in this little tiny space up here. So I think this is just going to be me fidgeting for a little while now. If you want to go get some dinner or put this on 2x playback speed, assuming you're watching this not live later on, because it's probably just going to be a bunch of commentary about how much of a pain it is that these cords are so long. Now granted, this is not a cord that came with this. This is a third party, so that's not a knock on them. It's just unfortunate that I couldn't find anything that's better suited. Ooh, this one. There's only 4 screws on the corner of this motherboard, and other than the little flat hard drive that's down under there, there's not much under there. And there's not a lot of heat being generated under there either. Just that one drive. So I can actually hide that cord almost 100% underneath the board here, which basically is like if this was a normal ATX case, sandwiching it between like all the fan cables that you shove in between the board and the back of the case. Same concept, just much smaller here. So that got rid of some of it, which is nice. Could probably do something similar with the other half of this. Since those are single wires, they can just kind of get shoved in under there, which is nice. Alright. This guy, I'm going to loop. It's already kind of naturally looping, and I'm just going to slide that back here. Okay, oh, and I need to make sure this gets underneath the bracket here before I get too stuck. Okay, so that's taken care of. And we'll loop this underneath with that other one. So, front, you can see all the looping that just happened. Kind of just tucks it back in this little channel here, which is nice. Heat pipes are going underneath. There's not a lot of contact actually with the pipes, which is nice. There's just a little buffer between, because these are all trying to bend themselves up towards the top of the case just naturally with the curve of the wire. Probably will obviously settle out a little bit over time once they warm up and stuff, but for now it's a good spot. Let's see. And this was, so the top plate has to go on first because this actually slides. There's a little slot here that it slides into the top plate. So I'm going to do that now before I tuck this last cord so I can have like a little pocket to kind of put that in. And top plate, there's a little vent here. Heat pipes are generally going to the back, so I'm going to put the vent near the back. Also, it looks like I have to do that because that's how the screw holes line up. So, that was the little hex screws, which do need this screwdriver here. And this front pair I'm not going to torque down all the way, like I said, because they're going to be pressing on that RAM. Hopefully I can still slide this front on, even if this is at a slight angle. I may have to slide it on and then tighten these back screws later, but I just don't want to put too much pressure on that RAM because that was pushing on the motherboard, and then that's just asking for danger zone, basically. So that's just, let's see, this doesn't look like it's even going all the way down over here. So let me lift this one up a little bit, and is there something, I think it's something other than the RAM in the way there. Maybe I got a cord stuck or something. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's getting stuck on. Oh, it's this screw for that other, yeah. So I do need to at least lower that so that both of the screws are under the flat of this case part, which is not totally tightened. This one is already down there. This one's not, though. And like I said, I mean, I can still wobble this a little, so I've got some room to play with that before it's going to be putting too much pressure on the RAM. Oh, and that's not a screwdriver. This is a screwdriver. So that's not quite flush. It's pretty close. Okay. So it's not pressing down too hard. Part of the issue is the sticker on this ATX thing is crooked, so it actually looks like there's some like pressure to the middle. So there's a little bit of optical illusion going on there. But actually underneath the board, spacing looks pretty close. There's definitely some downward pressure, but it's very minor, so I think we're good there. So I should be able to get this to lay flatter now than it was. Yeah, it's already going in better. Alright, and just a touch tight, not actually tight enough to... Yeah, and then you can see I have to push this down. So I will be loosening the other side, because I do not want that much pressure. On the board. Okay, so it can definitely go down a little, but not much. So I think the front will probably slide on fine. Let me get the back screwed on and I'll lift this up so we can see the channel that it made. A little cable cave, which is at the moment going to be very, very tight for room. And I may actually take this top off again and figure out a place to stick this in the back, because this is not looking like it's going to be very easy. Okay. Luckily there's a lot of slack here at least, so I can stand this up. And there's nothing sticking out, so safe to stand on its back. I can definitely see why they want the feet for this. There's already some scuffing on the bottom, but the feet will be here tomorrow, or possibly Friday. Luckily those just screw in from the bottom, so I don't have to take anything apart. There's some studs that they screw into there. But as you can see, back to this thing has to fit in between there, which it's already, I mean, not going down. And there's a lot more wire to hide. Plus, this is already as tight as it gets. So, where, oh where, is all this stuff gonna go? And that's definitely gonna require taking the top back off to get any of this stuff out of the way. Let's hide the other stuff underneath. Getting close to being done, but there's always one more little step to figure out. Okay. And we may actually take off the harness here as well, just so there's a lot easier access to some routing channels for cables. And actually in the instructions they put that on last anyway, so breaking too many rules by doing that. Okay, let's just lay that back there. So, I need to make room. Basically, and this does slide a little bit side to side, so it doesn't have to be perfect, but so this side is close to good, very, very close. This USB cable is odd because comes out the front and then curves back. I guess it could go. That pretty much has to be, because it's right now. I've got it routed behind this ATX block, so it's completely out of the way, and I think I have to keep doing that because otherwise it's just going to be more in the way than it is now. This is about as out of the way as it gets. So we'll leave that. These other red wires, though, can definitely be moved behind the ATX block, so let me unclick that again. I'm trying not to do this too many times. So it's not exactly fragile, but there's like capacitors and stuff sticking off, and I don't want to just jerk it and accidentally slam one of them off with a thumb. Ooh, I kind of creased that ribbon cable a little there too, so. Okay, so we'll tuck these red and black. This is just for the like hard drive LED and stuff, so those actually aren't that important. We'll get those behind the ATX deal. Behind but not pinched. So let's see if I can. Okay, come on. Okay, so those are taken care of. Boy, this guy, this long one that I used for this third hard drive is going to be just a pain, I think. Let me get that out from under there. Oh, now we're stuck on something. Okay, what are we stuck on? This black one, there we go. Let's see, I might be able to come up and over this. Let's get the red one out of the way. Yeah, so that needs to go behind. There we go. If I come up and over this part, there's this little lip here in the case. So that'll work. So that actually doesn't need to be up front at all, other than where it plugs into the ATX thing. So I'm just going to shove that in the back. Let's get this tucked out of the way for now. So we'll go up and over. This thing can be unhooked for now just to get it out of the way, because I want that up front. I want that up front and underneath everything else. Like this. Not quite like that. Underneath everything else, which is like this, and then like this. Okay. Alright. So that's good. This will go up and over. And I'm trying to keep away from the heat pipes if I can with too many of these, so there's just a little bit of better convection. And this also has to be with all these underneath this bracket for the SSDs, so a little bit of a challenge there. I'm sure we can manage. We will make it work. Okay. Let's go around the back of the heat pipes. Same with this guy. Alright. This all has to go under that bracket, so that's going to be... It's got to go around the RAM over to this side, which is part of the issue with pushing on the RAM, is there's all these cables that we want to go up right over it. Okay, so that's getting a little tight. there's actually a little bit of space in between the CPU and the RAM right there that tucks nicely into. Oof. This is going to be the second most boring video in the history of YouTube, I think, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, we're getting close though. Let's get this one wrapped around. And this loop can also tuck there. So the heat pipes have wide open around them on both sides. So hopefully that will help let them do their job. Bring that up front. That up front. Okay. And this is pretty close to done there. So now if I can just get this thing back where it was, with all those cables there, not on top of the RAM, because that's already being a problem, then we're golden. And it looks like that's gonna work. So, silver screw here. And not all the way down so that this isn't torquing too hard on the RAM. Again, I just lift it up to the level of the being flush with the case. And same on this side. Alright. God, I don't know why this one's so much easier. And this needs to be a little bit more hidey. Okay. So now we've got all this space, and there is a little air vent down here as well on the bottom of the case. So where this power brick is about to sit has some ventilation. Now let's just kind of dry. Actually, I might not put this underneath here because it's kind of getting in the way. Oh, come on. Alright. We'll just make sure this fits on here at all before doing the full cable shoving. And it does not get even close. Why not? So this ATX thing, I guess, must go on the side on some other boards, because this thing is just sitting up against it. I mean, there's no way I'm going to be able to put those thumb screws in. Here, let's see if I can show that on the video. So we've got this much room on the side right here and here, and it is up against that guy, and there's like, I mean, it doesn't want to move. It's not like it's just jiggled out of place. It is solidly there in the way. So that is not happy, and there's not anything I can do about that because orientation wide for the motherboard, the 4 screws only work one direction. Not only that, but the back plate has to be on the back of the case, so there's no way to just rotate the board and avoid that problem. So the external power that I had working before would have been the solution there. The only other issue, or the only other thing I can do really, is basically just have this thing sitting outside the case, which is seriously unfortunate because the whole point of this is that it's supposed to fit in this case with, you know, all the stuff in here. So, anyway, let's pretend so people can at least see what it would look like if it were able to fit everything. This guy, and once again, there's still more cables, so actually that would have to go back here to doesn't matter. Let's say I hid this one. Now we click this together. Come on. Nope. This one. It isn't either one. I keep forgetting that. Okay. We hide this one in the back somewhere. Click that one in. We tucked it. Whatever. By some miracle, this thing would have fit. And then, you know, the top plate would sit. Ta-da! So, that is basically what this thing would look like, finished. So, I am going to take some things apart a little bit, try to shovel, maybe shift, so that this guy can maybe sit on the side, or maybe in the back. We'll see what I can do. If not, I'm just gonna have to email the company again and say, am I just SOL here? Do I just have to have an external power supply? It's fine. It's just something to keep in mind. If you do get lucky, quote I said earlier, it was lucky to have this ATX on the front because it was then not getting in the way of your heat pipes. It looks like it's not lucky though because you cannot have this internal power supply. So I may switch back to this guy that I had going earlier. I'll just actually screw it in for real and continue to use the external supply that I have, or actually I'm going to buy a new one because that thing is so old that I don't trust it to really do its job. But there you go. That's that. That's basically all of the assembly steps that I can do. Hopefully this helps somebody trying to build something similar. If you are, and you watched all the way through the end to see this very, very disappointing ending, maybe it will hopefully keep you from buying incompatible parts so that you don't end up in the same situation. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you with some other projects soon.